The atmosphere in the room was thick with unspoken words, a tension that crackled like static electricity in the air. I felt it the moment I stepped into my in-laws' living room, my heart racing in rhythm with the laughter bouncing off the walls. Everyone was gathered, chatting aimlessly, but all I could see was Claudia, standing like a queen among her subjects, arms crossed, a smug smile plastered across her face. She thrived in this space, a realm where her authority seemed unquestionable, and I often felt like an imposter, struggling to find my place within the family dynamics. Tonight was just another family gathering, but to me, it loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. As Marco hugged me from behind, planting a gentle kiss on my cheek, I breathed in his familiar scent, seeking solace in those small comforts. But it wasn't long before Claudia's voice cut through the laughter like a knife. "So Alessia, how's your little crafting hobby going? Still making those cute little trinkets?" Her condescending tone dripped with mockery as she twisted the knife a little deeper. I felt heat flood to my cheeks, even as laughter erupted around us, the family joining in disbelief at her audacity. My heart sank at her words, the familiar embarrassment washing over me like a tidal wave. A crafting hobby? It felt like a belittling dismissal of everything I aspired to be. A reminder that in her eyes, I was still the same girl without a degree, no ambitions, just a housewife dabbling in arts and crafts. The laughter echoed around me, punctuating the air with a sense of humiliating defeat. I looked around at my family, their faces lit with amusement, and for a fleeting moment, I wanted to disappear, to slip through the cracks of the floorboards and vanish. The laughter felt like an isolation blanket, wrapping around me, suffocating me with their judgment. I remained silent, lips pressed together as I fought off tears. Inside, a storm raged, a cacophony of feelings, anger, embarrassment, self-doubt. I had been silently working on my ambitions, striving to get an education, dreaming of a career that felt miles away. But in that moment, it all felt meaningless against the laughter. Every snide remark and every roll of the eyes caused the walls I had built around my dreams to tremble. I clenched my fists beneath the table, nails digging into my palms, just trying to anchor myself amidst the turmoil. This wasn't just a casual insult. It was a dagger aimed at my heart, a public humiliation that magnified my insecurities. I longed to stand up, to scream that I had dreams, that my aspirations mattered, but the words lodged in my throat like nails, refusing to escape. Instead, I retreated within myself, a silent witness to my own defeat. In that moment, I felt invisible, a specter haunting my own life. But then, something shifted within me, igniting a spark of determination. I couldn't let this continue. I couldn't allow Claudia's dismissive words to dictate my self-worth. I thought of my dreams, the late nights poring over online courses, the research I had done, the steps I was finally ready to take. Never again, I thought vehemently, a vow forming in the depths of my heart. I would change this narrative. I wouldn't let Claudia's mockery bury my ambitions any longer. No more fear. I would take control of my life. As the laughter faded and conversation resumed, I felt a newfound strength swelling within me, eclipsing the shame. Claudia might have been able to belittle my aspirations, but she would not extinguish the flame of ambition and hope that was finally beginning to shine within me. I sat back, taking a deep breath, ready to embrace the challenges ahead with determination. This was just the beginning. I wouldn't let her silence me any longer. The memories came flooding back like an old movie reel playing on loop, each frame tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. My first family gathering as Marco's wife felt like stepping into a new world, filled with promise but overshadowed by the suffocating weight of expectations. I remember the day clearly. It was a warm spring evening, and the air was thick with the delicious aroma of roasted chicken and home-baked bread. As I walked into the house, I felt a flutter of nervousness swirling in my stomach, hoping to impress my new family while warm smiles greeted me at the entrance. But just as quickly as that wave of warmth washed over me, Claudia's voice pierced through, sharp and condescending. "So Alessia, how's your job hunt going? Still planning to make it big with those lovely little crafts?" The biting sarcasm in her tone sliced through the air, cutting down my dreams before they had a chance to take flight. I felt my cheeks burn hot, embarrassment creeping in like a thief in the night. My dreams had been met with ridicule the moment I had walked into her territory. The events of that night played out in my mind as if they had happened yesterday. I could see myself sitting at the dinner table, surrounded by a sea of unfamiliar faces, enthusiasm bubbling inside me as I tried engaging in conversation. But each comment I made was met with subtle eye rolls from Claudia, her comments crafted to belittle rather than uplift. My aspirations felt lost amidst her self-assured dominance. You really shouldn't aim too high, Alessia. It's important to know your limits after all. Her words echoed in my mind like a cruel refrain, the words prickling like thorns against my skin. From that initial encounter, I understood that Claudia saw me not as family, but as an intruder in her carefully curated world. With every family event, her barbs grew increasingly sharper, and my confidence continued to erode as the years went by. I remembered countless moments of feeling sidelined, my opinions rendered insignificant, whispers of disbelief swirling around me whenever I attempted to contribute. Claudia had made a sport of showcasing her accomplishments, a successful lawyer wielding her title like a sword, making certain everyone knew of her superiority. As time passed, the gatherings morphed into showcases of her relentless judgment rather than opportunities for connection. Every time I spoke, I could almost hear her inner monologue drilling down into my insecurities. What does she know? Who does she think she is? Each slight made her the center of attention, contrasting with the quiet echo of my aspirations. I felt a pang of resentment build inside me, a simmering anger directed at Claudia and potentially at myself for allowing her to diminish my dreams. In the quiet recesses of my mind, I often wondered how my life might have unfolded differently if I had been fortunate enough to receive the education she had. The years of hard work that had paved her way to success felt like the very wall keeping me confined. My thoughts turned inward, questioning every decision, every direction taken within the confines of the family dynamic that began feeling suffocating. Memories of neglect flooded in alongside the judgments I faced, revealing layers of pain masked by my longing for acceptance. Each family gathering became a battlefield where Claudia wielded her words like weapons, and I had taken on the role of the reluctant soldier, suffering the blows in silence. Every small remark, like a crack in the dam, weakened my resolve just a little bit more. I still remembered one gathering when I had mustered the courage to share my ambition of returning to school, only for Claudia to quip, "Are you sure you can handle both the household and school? It's a lot for someone like you." Those words hit me with the weight of 1,000 bricks. The dismissive tone wasn't just about my capabilities. It was a blunt reminder of her perception of me as less than, a constant prompting to remember my so-called limits. Yet even in the shadows, the dreams flickered like embers. I recalled the countless nights spent researching online programs, finding inspiration in the stories of others who overcame similar struggles. I used every moment alone to transform those bricks of doubt into stepping stones of ambition. Each little discovery reaffirmed my belief that I could break free from the mold Claudia had crafted around me. Still, the weight of family gatherings hung over me, creating a complex blend of dread and determination. Slowly, the echoes of my past collided with the embers of aspiration, igniting a sense of resilience I hadn't known existed within me. With each memory, I became more aware that it was no longer about proving Claudia wrong. It was about proving myself right. As I viewed the years accumulated behind me, I realized that those moments of humiliation had been fueling my fire, a fire of ambition that was slowly but surely growing stronger, yearning to be unleashed. I longed for the day when I would no longer be just Alessia, the quiet sister-in-law who faded into the background. I was destined for more, and I could feel that truth bubbling beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to break free. Sitting at my cluttered kitchen table, surrounded by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the bittersweet note of determination, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread taking root in my stomach. The remnants of dinner lay in the dishwasher, but I only had eyes for the stacks of online course materials sprawled before me, each sheet holding the promise of a brighter future. My laptop glowed under the dim light, a beacon guiding me through the murky waters of my aspirations, ready to reveal a universe of knowledge I had long neglected. As I began my research, Each keystroke filled me with a sense of purpose that I had desperately craved. I opened email newsletters from universities and online learning platforms, scrolling through course listings like a child opening gifts on their birthday. I became methodical, diligently documenting every belittling remark Claudia had made over the years. What had once been a source of shame transformed into a powerful catalyst, propelling me toward change. No more hiding, I whispered to myself, envisioning a life filled with achievement instead of mockery. I started to meticulously list the pros and cons of various universities, poring over different programs. I could hear echoes of Claudia's derisive laughter in the back of my mind, but the weight of her scorn felt lighter now, almost distant. I was evolving from Alessia, the hobbyist, to a woman ready to conquer her ambitions with newfound fervor. She could no longer dictate my worth, nor limit my potential. Empowerment surged within me. I could feel the flicker of hope igniting into a bonfire. Just then, Marco ambled into the kitchen and leaned against the doorframe, a mix of curiosity and concern washing over his features. "You've been awfully focused lately, Al. Everything okay?" His inquiry trembled on the edge of genuine concern, and it tugged at my heart. I wanted to share my ambitions, to explain the depths of my newfound passion, but the convoluted dynamics of our family held me back. How could I open up about my dreams without exposing myself to Claudia's ridicule? "Just digging into some online courses," I replied, trying to keep my tone light to obscure the intensity of my focus. As I spoke, I watched my husband's expression shift. He smiled as if proud, utterly oblivious to the urgency of my intentions. I felt a pang of guilt for keeping this pivotal part of my life hidden. But the fear of having my dreams crushed by Claudia fueled my resolve to protect my ambitions. As weeks evaporated into a blur, I immersed myself deeper into my research. I embraced the role of a determined student, navigating course options as if they were stepping stones toward liberation. Each online program felt like a new pulse of life, filling the empty spaces left by years of emotional neglect and belittlement. Every word I read added to my sense of empowerment. I was not merely preparing for exams. I was breathing life into my aspirations. I created a detailed plan to manage my responsibilities at home while diligently studying, ensuring there would be a delicate balance. The concept of studying at the kitchen table during those quiet evening hours became my sanctuary, a retreat where I could forge my own narrative free from Claudia's oppressive judgments. I even began to envision my life after the courses, picturing myself finally thriving, challenging the very perception Claudia had of me. As autumn leaves began to change outside the window, excitement coursed through my veins. I felt as though I was standing on the cusp of transformation, gathering the strength required to break free from the chains of humiliation. Each late-night study session filled me with confidence, and the whispers of self-doubt that had haunted me began to fade, replaced by a growing belief in my capabilities. One particularly late evening, the kitchen was quiet except for the rhythmic sound of my fingers dancing over the keyboard. As I closed my laptop after another productive study session, the anticipation within me simmered. I was conscious of a surge of independence enveloping me, intoxicating and exhilarating. I reveled in the idea of redefining myself not just as a sister-in-law or wife, but as an empowered individual capable of achieving great things. Every piece of knowledge I absorbed felt like a step toward my liberation. I began envisioning myself walking across a stage to receive a degree, the moment when all of my efforts would culminate into something tangible. I realized I had the power to change the narrative of my life, and I refused to let anyone, especially Claudia, take that away from me. With each quiet evening spent in newfound study habits, I forged a new version of myself, one with deeper confidence and a bright vision. Though challenges lay ahead, I was finally ready to embrace them and, without a doubt, I was done lurking in the shadows. It was time for the world to see Alessia, powered by determination and tenacity, stepping into her future. As the weeks passed, my confidence grew alongside my knowledge, and the excitement of pursuing my dreams lifted my spirit. But with this newfound ambition, the tension in my home began to rise, weaving an intricate web of conflict. Claudia sensed something changing in me, some shift in the way I carried myself. My refusal to cower in the face of her belittling remarks, It was as if the very walls she had built around me began to crack, making her anxious and desperate to reassert control. One evening, while I was working diligently on an assignment, I heard the familiar sounds of Claudia's high-pitched laughter drifting into the kitchen where I was stationed. I glanced up from my laptop, my heart racing as the laughter grew louder. She was in the living room, surrounded by family, recounting tales of my past failures. Each story filled with exaggerated details and a mocking tone. I could feel heat rising to my cheeks as I fought against the urge to confront her, to demand the respect I long deserved. Instead, I focused on my work, clenching my jaw as I continued typing my notes. But even though I was physically present, my mind wandered back to each recollection of her insults. Suddenly, Marco burst into the kitchen, holding a mug of tea, and my heart sank at the concern drawn across his brow. "Alessia, are you okay?" he asked softly, noticing the tension clinging to the air. I could barely contain my rage at Claudia's actions. Layers of frustration built up within me, bubbling just beneath the surface. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just working on my assignments." I was determined not to show weakness. I wouldn't give Claudia the satisfaction. But as I sipped the tea, I felt my emotions swirling, trying to summon the strength to not let her comments affect me. And indeed, to shield Marco from the burden of my inner turmoil. Days turned into weeks, and Claudia's influence loomed larger with each passing moment. She began disparaging my newfound commitment to education more openly, sometimes disguised as a casual comment that always stung. "You're still wasting your time with those online courses, right?" she'd ask, a piercing smile plastered on her face, hoping for a reaction. Each word dripped with derision, intent on undermining everything I was fighting for. And while my resolve had hardened, it also brought sharp pangs of doubt. No amount of studying could prepare me for the emotional warfare I found myself engaged in. One evening, the boiling point arrived. Exhausted from a long day of research, I returned home to find the family gathered in the living room. Another one of Claudia's infamous family gatherings. The air buzzed with the kind of laughter that sounded like poison to my ears. My insides knotted as I walked in. I had assumed I could sneak through without drawing attention, but Claudia's predatory gaze quickly locked onto mine. "Look everyone. Alessia has graced us with her presence between her studies." Her tone dripped with sarcasm, laughter erupting from the family members as they turned their heads toward me. The barrage of attention made my skin crawl, and I felt my face flush a deep crimson. I could feel the weight of their judgment, the whispering undertones that trailed behind me wherever I went. My heart raced as I desperately sought to maintain the calm exterior I had practiced so hard to construct. "Yes, I have studies," I retorted, finally breaking free from my restraint. The words flew out of my mouth before I had time to think, emotion pouring from my lips. "And I'm not wasting my time like you say. I am building a future for myself." I could hardly believe those words erupted from me. The air thickened with tension as silence descended upon the room. Claudia's eyes widened momentarily, but her typical expression of snark returned more fiercely than ever. "Oh, sweetheart, bless your heart," she dished out in the most condescending tone. "It's cute that you think you can just change overnight. You're still the same little girl who couldn't even sew without ruining a blanket." Each word punctuated with laughter from the others felt like daggers piercing through my resolve. "I'm not that girl anymore," I shouted. My own voice shocked me as it reverberated throughout the living room. Anger pulsed through me as I continued, my body shaking with the adrenaline of the confrontation. "I'm working hard to achieve my dreams, and I won't let you belittle me anymore." I could hardly bear to look at Claudia's reaction, the silence landing heavy as the weight of my convictions bore down on us both. There was a collective gasp, and I sensed the gravity of my actions. My stomach twisted as I stood, panting, my words hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Then I heard the softest voice. It was Marco. He stepped forward, his face a mix of shock and pride, his eyes searching mine. "Alessia, he began, clearly caught off guard by my outburst but also undeniably proud. In that moment, Claudia stepped forward, unwilling to let go of the power she had claimed. "You think this is a dream, Alessia? You're not special. You will always be beneath me, sweetheart." Her voice dripped with venom as she aimed to crush the spotlight I had just started to bask in. No. I'm going to prove you wrong. I yelled back, the distance between us charged with electric frustration. My heart raced, and I could feel the collective energy shifting as family members exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond. Marco moved, reaching for my arm, and I could sense his desire to shield me from the barrage. Al, maybe we should cool down. Stop. I interrupted, shaking my head fiercely. This has gone on for too long. I'm done living under your expectations and your ridicule, Claudia. My emotion cascaded through the room. Anger, pain, and defiance intertwined. Claudia scoffed, incensed. You think you can change your fate by clicking buttons on a computer? Her laughter echoed ominously, but this time it felt like rubber bullets bouncing off my armor. I was ready to fight back. You don't control me anymore, Claudia. I'm done, I proclaimed. A flood of surprise coursing through the family as they realized the battle had begun. In that moment, something within me crystallized. I could stand tall despite the familial discord brewing around me. The resolve to break free intensified, and I could see the battle lines being drawn. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was the beginning of my fight for autonomy and respect, a fight I refused to back down from. The tension remained thick as I stood my ground against Claudia, her expression of disbelief fueling the fire within me. I would not run anymore. The time had come for me to embrace who I really was and boldly chase the future I had envisioned. In the days that followed that intense confrontation, the atmosphere in our home felt charged, like a coiled spring waiting to snap. Claudia adjusted her tactics, becoming more covert in her attempts to undermine my confidence. The open hostility from before had morphed into whispered jabs, strategic undercurrents designed to chip away at my resolve while appearing innocent to others. Every morning, as I diligently prepared for my online classes, I sensed her watchful eyes. She'd linger in the living room, her deliberate comments veiled in sweetness, but loaded with insidious intentions. Oh, Alessia, I saw a story about a woman who used her degrees to become successful. She started right after college, she would chirp. I could hear the undertone, the subtle derision mocking my choice to pursue education later in life. It was a constant reminder of her efforts to diminish my achievements, twisting my determination into vulnerability. I became hyper-aware of these interactions, mentally dissecting her words, always searching for the punchline that never came. One evening, while I wrestled with an assignment, I noticed Claudia bustling around the house, preparing for one of her gatherings with our family and friends. There was laughter and the scent of something savory wafting through the air. I tightened my grip on my laptop, feeling the tension tugging at my chest as I overheard snippets of conversation that floated through the walls. Family members exchanged stories and praises, but inevitably, they tinged with Claudia's carefully crafted narrative. They would laugh about my so-called attempts at bettering myself, highlighting how long it had taken for me to finally catch up. A persistent knot tightened in my stomach. For a moment, doubts began to claw their way back to the surface, threatening to pull me under again. But I shook my head, reminding myself, I was not the person I used to be. I had a goal now, a vision for my future, damning her for thinking she could use my past against me. As the night rolled on and the food was served to our guests, Claudia planted her schemes like seeds among our family. I overheard her. Isn't it cute how Alessia thinks she can just jump into online courses? Imagine if she put as much energy into real-life work as she does into those little assignments. The derisive laughter that followed pushed me over the edge. I tightened my fists, fueled by a surge of anger and determination. If she thought she could manipulate my family against me, she was gravely mistaken. Without hesitating, I stood up from my chair, determined to confront her tactics directly, to reclaim my narrative in front of our family. You know what's cute, Claudia? I started, surprising everyone including myself. I stepped into the room where everyone was gathered, feeling the weight of their gazes shifting from Claudia to me. It's that I've decided to pursue my dreams, and nothing you say can take that away from me anymore. My voice rang firm and clear, drowning out the whispers of doubt buried deep inside me. I continued. You had your chance to define me, and I let you. But I'm done playing the role of the frightened girl who can't step beyond your shadow. I choose to be the woman who stands tall and unapologetic. I glanced around at our family, surprised to see nods of approval forming on their faces, and I felt a flicker of hope igniting. Maybe they were beginning to see through Claudia's manipulations, just as I had. Claudia's expression morphed from amusement to pure disbelief. "Oh, sweetheart, you really think you're fooling anyone? They all know you've struggled. They know how long it took you to even get here." Her voice was venomous, as if she relished the chance to kick me while I was down. "Do you really believe you can make a life for yourself with some little courses? You're just chasing a fantasy." Suddenly, something snapped in me. I refused to be her punching bag any longer. "This isn't a fantasy, Claudia. It's my reality. I'm tired of you belittling everything I do. This time, I am doing this for me, not for validation or approval from you or anyone else." I could feel the walls of our family's perception slowly crumbling, the chains she'd forged around me beginning to rust and break apart. But Claudia wasn't done yet. "You really believe you're special, don't you? That a few online classes will somehow make you magnificent? That's adorable." Her voice dripped with sarcasm, but the tension in the room shifted ever so slightly, hinting at the tides turning against her. "I don't need to be special, Claudia. I just need to be me. Without your taunts and your schemes looming over me. I am choosing to build a life of purpose, and that's enough." I turned to our family, feeling the supportive energy radiating from them as I spoke from the depths of my heart. "I hope you all understand this is more than just education. This is about reclaiming my life and my choices." The room fell silent. I could hear my heart hammering in my chest. I held my breath, waiting for Claudia's response. Would she use the family against me once again? Instead, a flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by a slow, cynical smile. "We'll see how this goes, Alessia." With that, she turned her back on the conversation, her laughter muted under a facade of calmness. Despite her words, I felt empowered, liberated, even. I realized that the true scheme had been her calculated attempt to undermine my progress and transform the narrative of my success into failure. But she was losing her grip. I could see it, feel it. Her words no longer had the same weight. The possibility of change hung in the air, and I dared to hope that our family might finally break free from her control. In the following days, I doubled down on my studies while remaining vigilant of Claudia's hostile maneuvers. She became increasingly desperate, trying to draw me into arguments, weaving her web of manipulation even tighter. But this time I held my ground. I embraced my studies as a form of self-defense, turning every ounce of energy I had into my work. Marco observed the tension between Claudia and me with a growing sense of concern. One quiet evening he approached me, his voice tender. "Alessia, you're really pushing yourself hard. Just remember, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here for you." His sincerity washed over me, filling my heart with appreciation and warmth. "I know it's difficult with her, but I want to support you no matter what." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I smiled, grateful for his unwavering belief in me. "Thank you, Marco. This means everything to me." I leaned in to embrace him. His gentle encouragement gave me strength in the face of adversity. It bolstered my resolve and solidified my path ahead. The revelation of Claudia's scheme hit home. It aided my determination to forge onward. My dreams were finally within reach, draped against the backdrop of a freedom I craved. And with every challenge she threw at me, I found a spark of hope igniting, reminding me that I was not only capable but deserving of all my dreams, and no one, particularly Claudia, could take that away from me. The weeks turned into a whirlwind of deadlines and lessons. As I dove deeper into my studies, I felt myself changing, shedding layers of doubt that had shaped my identity for too long. Claudia, on the other hand, seemed threatened by this new version of me and shifted her tactics. Rather than overt hostility, she adopted a passive-aggressive approach, whispering snide remarks among our family gatherings, painting me as the runaway daughter who thought too highly of herself. Every jab she threw my way infused me with determination. I was resolute. I wouldn't allow her to write my narrative any longer. On a crisp Sunday morning, while sitting at the dining table immersed in my notes, I glimpsed a brand new me emerging. One who was ready to take charge of her fate. Marco breezed into the kitchen, wearing his familiar weekend attire, a smile playing on his lips. "Hey, what's the topic for your presentation?" he asked, pouring me a steaming mug of coffee. It was a small gesture, yet it filled me with warmth. "It's about overcoming personal challenges," I replied, my excitement bubbling over. "I can't wait to talk about how I've had to navigate through all the emotional baggage Claudia's piled on me." As the words left my mouth, I felt the weight of her suffocating shadows begin to lose their grip. Days blurred into weeks, and each week brought me closer to my next milestone. As I engaged more with my studies, the anonymous and comforting world of online classes became a sanctuary where I could express myself freely. Our discussions allowed me to connect with classmates who faced their own trials. It was through their stories that I found encouragement. Together, we explored our strengths, building a communal support system that felt nothing less than revolutionary. But in our home, the undercurrents changed. Claudia, sensing that her power over me was waning, resorted to veiled insults masked as comments among family gatherings. "Isn't it adorable how Alessia thinks she can just jump into online courses? The poor girl just doesn't understand how the world works," she'd scoff, her laughter ringing hollow. While her poisoned words still bounced off my heart, I chose not to let them touch me. Instead, I internalized that her animosity was more a reflection of her insecurities than anything about me. My true turning point arrived during a pivotal presentation day. Logging into the virtual class, adrenaline coursed through my veins like fire. I had rehearsed for this moment, my heart pounding in anticipation of sharing my story. As the session began, I launched into my narrative about overcoming familial challenges. This journey isn't just about education for me. It's about reclaiming my identity and fighting against the shackles of expectations others have placed on me, I declared passionately. My voice echoed with conviction, resonating deeply within me and, I hoped, within my audience. When I finished, an electrifying silence hung in the air before applause erupted through the chat. The supportive comments poured in, each digital word making my heart swell with pride. I had shared my truth, entirely vulnerable, yet fiercely proud. That evening transformed into something extraordinary. Messages flooded my phone, celebrating my presentation, each one echoing encouragement I had yearned for. I felt a warm pang of gratitude wash over me. I was no longer alone in my struggle. My classmates shared their stories of personal battles, and in hearing them, I realized I wasn't just lifting myself up. I was becoming part of a larger community of resilience. In the following days, I began to observe a significant shift in Claudia's tactics as well. Fewer barbed comments reached my ears. Frustration seeped into her demeanor. I could sense her attempts to regain control slipping away. One evening at dinner, she leaned back in her chair, her brows furrowing in disbelief. "You really think you're so special now? Giving one presentation has suddenly made you a star." Her tone dripped with sarcasm, but beneath it lay a hint of fear of losing her influence. Filled with newfound confidence, I decided to confront her. "It's not about being special, Claudia. It's about proving that I am worthy of following my dreams, regardless of how you perceive my journey. I won't let you diminish that anymore." The words spilled forth, each syllable empowered by every struggle I had endured. That evening, I saw the look in her eyes change. A blend of rage and something else. A ghost of respect for standing my ground. As the days passed, I gravitated closer to my passions. Claudia's looming presence felt less oppressive, and the walls she built to define my identity began to crumble. The power dynamic in our household had shifted. I had wrested the control back into my own hands. I delved into my studies more fiercely than ever, my knowledge becoming a source of liberation instead of vulnerability. Then came the moment I had long anticipated, but never knew I could crave. Standing tall and unyielding in the face of Claudia's manipulation. During another tense gathering, she leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You think by sharing stories you're somehow inspiring. Newsflash, you're just chasing fairy tales." I stood up, heart racing yet resolute. "You might think you can reverse my progress with your words, but they won't silence me anymore. My journey has only just begun." And there it was, liberation wrapped in resolve, breaking the chains that had confined me for so long. Looking around the room, I saw nods of support from family members, a camaraderie that had emerged in the most unexpected ways. I had become a source of inspiration, not just to myself, but to others facing their battles. In that moment, Claudia's power over me diminished further. With every confrontation and shared success, I boldly marched ahead in the pursuit of my aspirations. The hope that on this journey, I would ultimately bridge the gap she had created became clearer. Not just for me, but for anyone striving for their identity against adversity. I was carving my own path, and I was ready to embrace every challenge that lay ahead. As I continued my journey, it became clear that I was stepping into a new reality, one filled with empowerment and self-discovery. No longer did I feel like a shadow in Claudia's world. I was forging my own path, replete with fresh possibilities and a strong sense of purpose. My online studies had taken off, and I eagerly participated in class discussions, sharing insights I previously doubted I could articulate. Support from my classmates began to feel like a lifeline. Together, we exchanged resources and celebrated each other's successes, forging bonds that felt both genuine and transformative. It was refreshing to connect with peers who understood the struggles of finding a voice amidst chaos. This collective journey fueled my motivation, inspiring me to delve deep into my studies and explore uncharted territories of knowledge. One moment that stands out occurred during a leadership lecture when my professor asked, "What does it mean to lead in your own life?" The question echoed in my mind, lighting a fire within me. I raised my hand, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Gathering my thoughts, I spoke with clarity. Leading my life means embracing my passions, confronting challenges head-on, and defining my narrative without apologies. The thunderous applause that followed reverberated through me, reminding me that my words held weight and resonated deeply. However, despite my growth, Claudia's presence still loomed large. Her passive-aggressive comments intensified as I flourished, revealing layers of insecurity. It was evident that she felt threatened. Family dinners often turned into tense battlegrounds where she would belittle my aspirations. "You think you can just waltz into this dream world? You're naive," she would sneer, disguised as concern. But instead of feeling small, I learned how to respond calmly and assertively. "It's not naivete, it's ambition," I'd retort, reminding myself of the strength I had cultivated. The pivotal moment came one evening during an especially charged family dinner. Claudia unleashed one of her usual diatribes, insisting that I was out of touch with reality. I could feel a storm of emotions bubbling, anger, frustration, but also fierce determination. Taking a deep breath, I stood my ground. "I may not meet your expectations, but I refuse to allow your fears to define my life. I am creating a narrative that belongs to me." The room fell silent, my words hanging in the air like an unbreakable promise. As time moved forward, I sought new avenues for growth. I stepped outside my comfort zone and joined a local book club. Each meeting transported me into enchanting worlds filled with words that sparked my imagination. The stories we discussed reflected the multifaceted nature of humanity, and I found comfort in sharing my own experiences with others who encountered their own battles. Within this group, I finally felt I belonged, forming connections that fueled my confidence and revitalized my spirit. Despite Claudia's attempts to maintain control, I noticed her influence over me diminishing with each passing day. The more I reached for my dreams, the more liberated I felt. I was growing into a stronger version of myself, resilient and fueled by ambition. Gone were the days of feeling intimidated or constricted by her expectations. I nurtured the freedom to pursue my passions wholeheartedly. Reflecting on my path, I came to realize that the journey of reclaiming my narrative involved embracing new connections and opportunities. I had finally begun to lead my own life, taking deliberate steps fueled by ambition and determination. Embracing my identity felt invigorating, and I understood that this was merely the beginning. I vowed to keep asserting my independence, continually reminding myself that I was worthy of every dream I chased. Looking ahead, I envisioned a world where I could thrive, one where I would write my own story without fear. Armed with the knowledge that strength comes from owning my choices, I was prepared to forge new paths and confront any challenges that lay ahead. I was ready to embrace this beautiful, chaotic journey, trusting that I would rise to meet whatever came my way. No longer would I allow anyone to dictate my worth. I had become the